Morning, everybody. This is Catmatt live from the living room. I've always wanted to do a series of So You Want to Be. I had that idea a long time ago. Um, you know, so you want to get into the fishing industry, so you want to have sponsors, so you want to be a guide, so you want to yada, 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 on and on and on. So, um, in today's catfishing world of instant gratification, which is what it's become, I wanted to share my 2 decades of experience as a guide. I started my guide business a lot like most people do. You get a few people say, "Hey, man, you should guide. You're pretty good at doing this or doing that or whatever." And um, I knew a few guides back when I was getting started, 24 years ago, and a local guide actually had taken ill and asked me to cover some of his trips for him, which I thought was, which I still appreciate. We don't speak anymore, but I still appreciate that because it gave me a chance to see if it was something I was going to enjoy. I was not necessarily worried that particular day on how we did. I was more concerned on the feeling, and what I ended up learning over 2 decades of guiding is um, that is uh, catching fish is a very, very, very small part of guiding. You're dealing with um, people from different states, different countries, different walks of life. Each day you have experienced fishermen that won a trophy. You have fishermen that have barely held a rod and reel in their life. You have, I mean, you got 6 year olds, you got 76 year olds, you've got a lot of different things that you have to learn to deal with. You've got to be um, able to handle the different personalities and the different. You're going to get some people that are, there's just guiding is more than catching fish. I know that anybody has guided for a long period of time that has been serious into guiding um, knows that you um, there's all kinds of questions that you get asked during the course of a day. You have to be able to articulate, these answers and answers to them in a way that they can learn, a way they can, my goal as a guide, and I was a flathead guide for most of my career, which made it extremely tough. It's a lot of pressure, um, you know, to have people and groups of people come and put them all on flatheads. Um, you know, there's just so much more, you know. I think one of the favorite things that I would hear when I was in my boat is, "Man, you've got the best job on the planet." Well, they were right to a certain extent, but they almost made it seem like there was no work involved. And let me tell you, it was extremely tough. Um, if you're a flathead guide, especially blue cats in the south, catfishing in general, um, catching bait. I mean, if you've got guide trips 4 days a week, you know, for 6 straight months, 7 straight months, and you've got to have bait for all them trips. You've got to take into consideration all your, hey, Cody, all your, and that's another, and then that leads to other things. So, you know, what do you think about moon phases and what do you think about this? Well, if you ask any guide, you're going to find out that we had to figure out how to find fish, um, regardless of the moon phase, the water level, the water temperature, the spawn, all these things that as a fisherman that's just a pleasure fisherman, all these things that you don't have to worry about so much. You can kind of avoid. You can kind of fish around. You know, we had to learn these tactics. So when I was guiding, I never had I never had a colored depth finder until about 2014 or 15. And before that, we just had the junky ones. So I guided strictly. Um, we didn't have the luxury, I didn't have the luxury of hiring guides. I didn't have the luxury of learning everything from the internet. So, we had to learn things by looking at the water. I think the old adage that people say sometimes, hey, I've forgotten more than you'll ever learn. Um, Even though that sounds kind of arrogant, and it's like in a way, when it comes to fishing, that's true for some of us guys that have been doing it for 40 or 50 years. Um, and we had to learn it the hard way. And we were part of the generation that brought the information to the new wave of fishermen of instant gratification. And you know they can take a few guide trips, they can get on the internet for a couple of years, they can get out on the water, and all of a sudden they've got a YouTube channel, and they've got this and they've got that, and they've got a jersey, and they've got this. But I'm getting off the beaten path. I'm getting into a whole nother video, which is so you want to be a sponsored angler, all that stuff. So I'm going to stick to the guiding part of it. um, Guiding is very rewarding. You can get, basically, I used to tell people I kind of get paid in smiles, because I was a very inexpensive guide. As guides go, I was one of the cheaper ones around, even though I had one of the tougher jobs, which was putting groups of people on flatheads every day. Um, I ran over 500 trips strictly for flatheads in my career. Um, you know, there's 17 years when I was guiding extremely hard. And, I got sick in 2018, and it's been more kind of what you would call a part-time gig since then, because I've been sick a lot. But um, extremely tough, extremely rewarding. I enjoyed every minute of it. However, when you're taking things into consideration, first thing you have to take into consideration is, how many people are you going to guide for, and what kind of boat do you have? Is it big enough? Very few people that came, at least over my career, were really concerned about ultra comfort. Um, Now, for most of my career, I was able to offer that, mainly because I had a great sponsor in G3 Boats that, I always had a nice boat, always had plenty of room, always had comfortable chairs, yada, 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 on down the line. But now, not everybody can do that, so it's something to take into consideration where, you get a call from a guy, and he's got a group of four, and it's big money, and the fish are biting, and you're all excited about it. However, and your boat's rated for 6 people, maybe, and you're all excited about that, but you have to take into consideration now, okay, I'm going to have 4 people in my boat plus me. I need, how am I going to distribute this around and get everybody on fish, keep everybody happy? There's just so much to think about when it comes to that. Yeah, it's not that part of that point becomes moot. If you have a big boat, if you have plenty of room, some of these things will become moot points. However, it's something to think about. If you're guiding out of a 16-foot flat bottom, for instance, you and a group of four is going to be pretty tough. Um, Now, my very first guide trip was on the Rock River, obviously, and I did it out of a 16-foot landau with a 9.9, a 14-foot landau with a 9.9 Johnson. Uh, it was kind of one of them things where I thought, well, if it goes well, I'm gonna, I've been wanting to be a guide, and I said I had a few guides, friends that were guides: Tim Scott, Denny Hallgren, Joe Dyer. I had a few guys that I knew of that were guides. Um, I had fished with a couple of those guys a couple times, but um, and I really liked the idea of it, and I had a lot of opportunities open up. So I took this guide trip, and one guy, me and him in a 14-foot landau, we went out on the Rock River up by Dixon, Illinois, and we anchored I had a cooler sitting in the middle of the boat with all my live bluegill in it and a cooler, and I thought, man, I was high tech, and I went to the head of this hole and I threw a bluegill out, and I didn't even have rod holders in the boat. This is how long ago it was. I didn't have any rod holders. So I put the first pole down. I had these little clips along the side that I lean them against. Put the first pole down. I turn around. I grab a bluegill. And I turn back, and the first pole is bent over and I hand the pole to the guy, and he reels it in, and it was I think it was a 33-pound flathead. And I thought, well, you know, like a kid that just shot his first, I thought, well, this stuff's easy, man. So so I'm thinking, well, pretty good. So we fished around the rest of the day, and we ended up pulling up on a log and catching a 17-pound flathead, and then we caught a 7-pound flathead, and then we accidentally caught an 8 or 9 pound channel cat. And to those in the know, at least those in the north that know, catching 3 flathead and a real nice channel cat in 6 hours of fishing on the rock, that's a great day. That was a great day. And I always had told people, people would always ask me, what's to you, what is a great day of flathead fishing? And to me, being a purist, to me, targeting flathead and catching a flathead in a day was a great day of flathead fishing. So that's how I judged a day of flathead. If I loaded up the boat with flathead rigs, flathead bait, went out and was fishing flathead cover and caught a flathead that day, I felt like that was a good day. I had accomplished what I was doing. I wasn't out there throwing a mix of live and cut baits just hoping to get lucky. I was targeting a species of fish that's tough to catch regularly, and I was catching one. I was happy. So, make a long story short, I ended up guiding several more times that year and then just never looked back. I believe that was 2000. So it took off, and as things took off for me, I got sponsors. I had GNS Cheese Bait as a sponsor, and the reason I'm bringing up the sponsors is because they obviously help you in a huge way as a guide, because if you're getting your bait for free, and if you're getting your hooks for free, and your rods for free, and your reels for free, and you're not paying for your boat, and you're not paying for your boat motor, on and on and on and on, your fishing clothes, everything, then that takes overhead. Your overhead goes way down, and you're making a lot better money doing what you love to do. So while I was not trying to be Kevin Van Dam, which a lot of people thought I was trying to be, and if you're a guide and you're successful, you're going to have people out there that are going to do that. They're going to think that you think your shit don't stink, and that you're doing this because you think you're the best thing since sliced bread. And if I had a freaking nickel for every time I heard that, or if I could just choke those people, I would go back and I would choke those people, but you just can't do it. So got to remember on the side of your mind that it's the catfishing world, and if you have any success, you're going to be torn down, and that's just the way it goes. So you have to learn to kind of deal with it. But the sponsorship came in later in my career with G3. I was with them for a long time. So when you don't have a boat payment, when you don't have, when I would have channel cat trips on people that just wanted to go catch channel cats, I would use GNS cheese bait and J&N dip worms. And, I was getting my line from several different places. And, I dealt with a bunch of line companies in my career, from Zebco, which was Cajun, which is what I used for a long, long, long time. I also, Vicious, Cast King. So I've used a lot of lines from a lot of people, but I haven't bought fishing line in 20 years. And that helps you tremendously. And then the hooks, I used Matsuo hooks for years and years and years and years. And in between, I used some others, and now I'm using all Boss Cat hooks, and Boss Cat, amazing, amazing hooks. But again, You're not paying for line. You're not paying for hooks. So that and you want to, these are things that you want to actively go after as a guide, not because of any kind of status or recognition, but because just like anywhere you work, if you can take your overhead down, because it's super, super easy to promote companies when you're guiding, you know, 15, 16, 17 days a month. Some guys are more, some are less, and some guys are 10 or 12 months a year. Some are 6 or 8 months a year, just depending where you are in the country. You can do it and you are able to articulate, talk to people, have conversations, laugh, joke, kid, forge friendships with people. You're really able to promote their boats, their motors, their hooks, their line, their weights, the rods, the reels. Everything that is involved in fishing now becomes super easy for you to promote. So, why not? Why not pursue sponsorships when you're guiding? It just helps. It goes hand in hand, and it really, really helps their products, because where it's easy for a guy to go online and take a picture fishing with a rod, catching a fish, okay, when somebody gets in your boat and they get to pull a big fish out of cover or whatever, and they get to actually turn the crank and bend the rod and set the drag and all that stuff, well, there's no better way to sell a product than let the product sell themselves. So when you have a great product in your boat and you know it, it's going to sell itself, which in turn you're going to get pictures, you're going to get testimony, you're going to get all this from people, and that's why I was able to do so well with sponsorships over the years, and I appreciated everyone I had, whether they were with me for a year, or whether they've been with me for 20 years, or whether 5 years, whatever. Every sponsorship that you can get, if you're going to be a guide, is super, super important. Make sure it's a product you want to represent. Make sure it's a product that's going to work well, because you cannot afford to have failures when people are paying you money to catch fish. It's just one of them things. If I owned a big company, I'm not giving a sponsorship to anybody that is not a guide. That's just my opinion. Now, again, this is all my opinion. This is not what you should do as far as sponsorship. But with me, if I'm starting up a new company, I'm finding 3 or 4 of the best guides in the country, and I'm pumping them full of my product, and I want them to put it in people's hands, use it, beat it to death, stress it to the max of its ability. And that's where I want all my feedback coming from. I give two craps, just like most owners don't, about tournaments, because they don't matter. If you really want to go after product, you really want to be able to show your product off, if you're a guide, that's where it is. So if you're a guide, I encourage you to get sponsorships to help you bring your overhead down. It's good for you. It's great for the company you're representing. You're helping them sell more product. So it's a great thing for both of you. So I prefer that. Now, remember, as a guide over the years, you're going to get lots of opportunities. Advertising is important. When I started, Facebook was not an option. So I had a website and I had all these other things. And I made T-shirts and I made decals and I did stuff that way. And your truck sitting in a parking lot or driving down the interstate with decals on it will help you get trips. People always used to make fun of that. Oh, you got decals on your well, you got to learn at some point to say screw everybody, because most of them are idiots anyway. I don't know how many people called me and said, "Hey man, I seen this truck going down the interstate and it had this decal in the back window with a phone number about catfishing guide trips. Is that you?" And I don't know how many of them I had, because I had a $4 decal this big in my back window. Don't know how many trips I booked because of those decals in the windows, but it was a lot. or people that would see it in a parking lot at LaSalle Lake or the Rock River or the Mississippi, whatever, wherever they would see it. So if you choose to do that, that's a great advertisement. Have your a decal with your name and your phone number clear, not some fancy frickin' uh, writing or something that you can't read. Let it pop, So make sure it's legible. Great way to advertise yourself. And then obviously, I was very fortunate, got to do 10 or 11 TV shows, and I got to do a radio show. It led into radio shows, and I've done a lot of writing, and you're able to promote yourself through all of that stuff, which is really, really good. Um, but nowadays I know Facebook and TikTok and all of these uh, online social media sites make it pretty easy to um, make it pretty easy for you to advertise. The only problem is the internet is just flat ugly. So which leads me into the next thing. The legalities of guiding. Okay, so you're either going to choose to do things one or two ways. You're going to choose to not take your captain's class, or you're going to take your captain's class. This is what's going to happen to you if you don't. If you don't become a captain, all the guys that are captains across the country, not all of them, because some of them just go about their business and do their job. There's some good guys out there. Some of them are going to choose to bash you because you didn't get a captain, and you can just tell them to fuck off because it's none of their business. You're the one taking the risk, and most conservation officers in most states will tell you they're not going to piss with you if you don't have a captain's license. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you to break the law. Where I live, which was always very confusing to a lot of people that wanted to stick their nose into my business, where I guided all my life in Rock Island County and Whiteside County on the Rock River is considered non-navigable water, just like LaSalle Lake, Powerton Lake, all non-navigable water. You do not need a captain's license to guide on those bodies of water. Now, you get outside of those bodies of water, yeah. Do you need one? Yes, you're supposed to have one. I did 90% of my trips in my life between Sterling and the mouth of the Rock River in Rock Island and Whiteside County. So I paid $50 every year. I went to the DNR and got my boat inspected every year and got a little green and white sticker from the state of Illinois. Got the little green and white sticker from the state of Illinois saying that I was a guide. That's all I needed to do. So you still have people, well, you're guiding illegally, blah, 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 you know what? And it just never ends. So you as a guide, if you do not get your captain's license, be prepared at some morning or at some point in your career, if you are advertising on social media, to take the flack from somebody, some asshole out there that decided that morning that they just want to be in somebody else's business, is going to get on there and they're going to say, well, you're guiding illegally, and that's up to you. If you decide to get it and do everything 100% legal, then that's great. I know plenty of guys that are guiding around here that don't have a captain's license, and I know some that are guiding around here that do. Guess what? I never said anything bad about any of them as far as the way they were doing it. So, teach their own. If you're not on non-navigable, if you're on navigable federal waters, you're supposed to have a Coast Guard license. Now, kudos to those guys that took the time, spent the money to do it, and wanted to be able to travel and guide anywhere they wanted to guide on a moment's notice. There's a lot of great guys out there, like Josh Brown. I'll throw his name out there, which is something for another video, but down at Backwoods, he does a great a great job guiding. I know he's got a captain's license. He's down south. Anyway, I got some guys that are getting started around here, um, and that's great because this is it for me. At the end of this year, my guiding days are done. I'm retiring. It'll be dang near, it'll be 20, just shy of 25 years for me, and I'm quitting. I'm I'm gonna go back to fishing for me. I'm tired of dealing with all the crap, and But anyhow, um, so if you're all excited about being a guide because you know how to catch fish, you got a boat and stuff like that, that's great. And I'm not trying to curb your enthusiasm at all. I'm just trying to let you know that as you get into it, you're going to find out there is so much more to guiding than um, being able to catch a few fish. Insurance, um, you know, insurance, promotion, trying to get some sponsors to help out, traveling to and from, wear and tear on your boat. You got three guys coming from California. They're in town. They got here at 5 o'clock tonight, and you wake up tomorrow morning and you've got a piece or part on your boat that's not running anymore. You've got yourself a problem, a big problem. So, you're going to have to reimburse these guys for their hotel room and their travel and stuff if you can't get on the water. So there's a lot of things that you might not think about. You think, well, I can catch fish. I got a boat. I'm boom. A lot of things to take into consideration before you get too gung ho. I'm not trying to curb anybody's enthusiasm. I'm just trying to get you to think of all the scenarios that can come up when you start doing that. Guys can wrap up thousands in the trip. But on the flip side of that, one of the great things about guiding is the people that you meet. Um, I've sold 300 or 400 T-shirts over the years, which isn't many when you think about it, because that's over 20 some years. So, 6, 8, maybe 10 T-shirts a year with my name on it and stuff. And, um, I've got a couple of them walking around in Japan. I've had two boys from Japan come here 4 years out of 5 at one point. I've had a country music star, a pop star, a couple MMA legends, a 2-time Super Bowl champion. I've had a lot of different people in the boat. I've had, CEOs of big corporations and semi truck companies and college athletes, and I can go on and on. And then I've had, the people right down the frickin' road. So, I think at one point I know I had 32 states represented at one point, and 4 countries: Japan, Mexico, Canada, and the United States. I've fished with owners of companies, and I've gotten to do a lot of really, really cool things as a fishing guide. Um, you know, so I don't regret any of it. It's really, really cool. Um, and if I was to tell somebody that wanted to just get started, I'd tell them, go gung ho, man. Go for the whole thing. Don't just ticky tack around with it. I was ticky tacking around with it. I thought I would, I wanted to do a guide trip a week during the summer just to kind of supplement income and spend more time on the river. And it took one season of that, and my phone started ringing off the hook. Catfish. All the new people on the internet nowadays say, "Oh, catfishing's coming, man. You can see it change." No, it's not. Now, it's been doing this shit for 20 years. There's just more people out there running their yappers that don't do nothing. It's the same. It's in the same position now as it was then. It's the same thing. This has been going on. Maybe a few of us were a little bit before of our time. Maybe if I would have started as a young, healthy man, instead of starting in the late 90s, been starting like in 2015 and hit this wave of more social media, man, I'd have torn it up. I don't even know what I would have been so far ahead of where these anglers are now as far as dealing with sponsors and and guiding and all that, I would have been way, way, way ahead of 90% of them, because most of them don't have any clue how to promote themselves, and they do too much me, I'm the greatest stuff on the internet, and they just don't understand how to run their business. But um, it's been happening for a long time, and you get to do it for the time you want. So if you want to do it, that's my suggestion to you, is to go balls to the wall, man. Just everything, every avenue, the advertising, the sponsorships, the fishing, the captain's license, the everything, the insurance, tip top everything. Push it as hard as you can go as far as you can go. Um, just keep in mind, like you said, each day in the boat is a different person, different personality. You always want to, when you take a phone call from somebody, make sure you know what they want to fish for. For me, if I'm channel cat fishing, flathead fishing, those are two whole different sets of equipment, completely different bait. So if I got three guys coming tomorrow and I think we're going channel cat fishing, and they just want to catch some fish to eat, I show up at the ramp with six medium light action poles and 2 tubs of GNS cheese bait. Well, I know that's a really good time, but these guys wanted to catch flathead. I'm I just stepped on my dick pretty good right there. So you don't want to make those mistakes getting started. So make sure when you book trips that you're clear. What are we fishing for? How long are we going to be out? What their expectations are. I like to talk to them. They say, well, we've been fishing a long time. We pretty much know what we're doing. We just haven't been able to break the 20-pound mark with flatheads. All right. Well, I know that these guys pretty much know what they're doing. They're looking to really, really try to catch a big fish that day. And that kind of changes your tactics, because if I'm just trying to find a flathead, I'm gonna hit more small fish stuff to try and mix up the areas with the big fish, so I know we can get a flathead or two in the boat while we're trying to get a big one. So you need to know what they're thinking so that you can plan your day each day with these people, so that you know what they're expecting. You want to make their day as fun as possible, you know, laughing, joking, keeping the spirits up. Even if the fishing's slow, you want to be able to keep their spirits up, let them know it's happening, you're working, they see you pulling anchor and moving around and freshening baits, and make sure you're active and keep them into it. And then when it happens, they're like, fucking, hey, man, that guy, he worked. He worked, man. He worked. He caught it. He finally, the bite was bad, and this guy kept working, man. We must have hit 15 anchors, and boom, finally, he threw this bait out there right like he said, and we caught a good flathead. And you'll have those days where you're scrounging for a fish or two, and then you have them days where the fish are really biting well and things are going good, and you really look like you know what you're doing. And so you got to learn to make the best of all the situations when you're a guide. They're looking to you. They paid you. So there's nobody else to say, well, my dad, he told me if we went over here and fished today, we'd do good. And, well, dad ain't in the boat with you, it's just you. So they're looking at you because they're the ones, they're putting the money in your hands. So you better make sure you do all your homework to ensure when they put the money in your hands, they do it with a smile, because that's a big deal, especially since I find that about 50% of my guide trips over the years were return customers. And that's when you're doing things right, is when you get a lot of return customers. Yeah, and people will tip you really well too. If you're a good guide, do a good job. And again, when I say good job, that doesn't always mean you caught 350-pound flathead, because that just doesn't happen up north. But it doesn't always mean you caught a giant fish that day. It means they had fun, they laughed, they probably did catch some fish, they learned how to tie a rig, they had been looking for the right rod and reel combo, and they just couldn't stumble on it, but they loved what you were using, so they're going straight home, and they're calling this guy that sells these rods and these reels and that line because they want a couple of those rigs in their boat. And that's where the whole guide sponsor relationship comes in. They can't they can't get home fast enough so they can order this stuff for their boat. I mean, I've had guys come on guide trips and within a week they worked at fire departments, and within a week their fire department was over here at my sponsors buying their brand of boats because they wanted to use those boats for their fire and rescue. It all ties in. It's not about the guys that think you're trying to be special and stuff. It's just using common freaking sense. It wasn't that I never thought I was better than anybody else, but I used the leverage I had to get the things I got, and I did a lot for those people and they did a lot for me, and it was great. When you get signed affidavits from people, testimonials from people saying, man, I was on the fence about buying a boat, but after I fished with Matt and I seen how this boat ran and how it handled and how it anchored and how it handled waves and all that stuff. So, we went and bought a boat. When you get 20 or 30 of those and you take them to a company, you know what? They're probably going to you're going to probably get a deal with them. And that's what happened with me. It's the same with line and reels and rods and sinkers and terminal tackle and apparel. And, it is nothing about. Yeah, I see that on the internet all the time. Why would they go with him over, well, because most of the time the people saying that don't know the whole story. In fact, they don't know you at all. So I hope I have given you a ton of stuff to chew on about guiding. Again, I'm retiring. This is my last year. So if anybody watching this wants to get out fishing with me for flatheads or something like that in August or September when this water settles down, this is it. I'm done. I'm going to continue to write. I want to get back into writing. I love writing about my experiences catfishing. So if you have any more questions, if you're thinking about being a guide or you're going to be a guide and you want to ask me anything, I certainly have a lot of experience to fall back on. I don't know everything. Like I say that in every video. I don't know everything about anything, but I do have a lot of experience and knowledge about some things, and guiding is one of them. So if you have any questions, I can definitely help you. I did extremely well for more than 2 decades, and just little things here and there make a huge difference. So I'm certain that I have not covered everything there is to about guiding, but I will tell you, the number one thing is to keep in mind, and I think over the years, out of all the things that I can say to you is, it is surprising how much not about the fish guiding is. I had people that brought coolers full of food, and the main thing about their trip that day was wanting to get up on bank, put up their easy up, and make their lunch on a sandbar and enjoy the middle of the day. They could have cared less whether we caught 5 channel cat or 20. It was up to them. It was about the weather and having lunch together on the bank. I stayed 30 yards away and fished for channel cats with G&S cheese bait out of the back of my boat while they went up on bank, had a shore lunch, relaxed, sat there in the breeze. We caught some channel cats early. We caught some channel cats late. They spent an hour and a half on the bank having lunch, not even fishing. So you get all kinds. So the fishing is, while a part of it, I'm going to say it's 25 to 35% of it. A lot of guiding doesn't even have to do with the fish. So if you have any questions for me about guiding, I'd love to help you. Anybody that wants to be a guide, if you think I can help you in any certain way, I'll answer you. I'll help you with any questions that you might have that I can answer. To all the guide clients I've had over the 24 years, and there's been a lot of you, I appreciated every one of you. I did the best I could for every one of you, which is what most people will, that's all most people will ask from you. I think at one point I had over 500 flathead trips, At one time, I think I had 22 where we didn't catch a flathead, which as flat if a real flathead fishermen know that ain't bad. And 90% of those trips were daytime trips. Um, but anyway, if you have any questions, feel free. I'd love to answer them for you. Um, and I appreciate everybody. And I'm going to be doing a whole series on here of different So You Want to Be, including how a sponsor angler, how I went about getting sponsors, how to deal with social media because it's stupid and horrible. Lots of different things. So um, y'all have a great day. Weather's nice out there. I know our water around here is high, but that's a perfect time to grab a tub of GNS cheese bait and get out, throw yourself some whisker wear apparel on, and get yourself a nice big fresh tub of what we like to refer to as tournament strength GNS cheese bait. Uh, you know, if you're on the bank, you can put that stuff on a dip worm behind an offshore tackle planer board and let that current take it right out there and sit that worm on that cover. Man, it's a good time. Anyway, all right, people. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll be back with more later. Y'all have a great day.